Okay, so Fundora stops Keith Thurman. He becomes the first guy to stop Thurman. Um, Previously, Thurman had only ever lost to Manny Pacquiao by decision. Fundora stopped him. My prediction was round 9. Okay, I thought that Thurman would round 9 stoppage for Fundora. I did think Thurman would land some better punches in there, some better shots, but Fundora was a lot more patient in this fight, and he just completely dominated, beat up on Thurman. Thurman, he was complaining after the fight that it was stopped early. I mean, I don't know what he's talking about. He was taking an absolute beating. His eye was swollen up. He was rocked on multiple occasions. He wasn't really throwing much back in the end. And even throughout the whole fight, he didn't land much. He didn't even land as much as Tim Tszyu landed in the second fight between Tszyu and Fundora. Yeah, Keith Thurman was just totally outmatched by Fundora. And it was a good win for Fundora, but I don't see anyone wanting that fight. Fundora is 6'6" at 154 pounds. I don't see Innes, I don't see Virgil Ortiz, I don't see any of these guys at 154 wanting to get in there with Fundora, right? I just don't see it. And besides that, I think that Fundora should move up. He should start moving up through the weights now. There was an argument that Fundora is a very thin guy. He's got a very thin body, so he's not physically strong, right? But I mean, you saw him in there against Tim Tszyu, Thurman. He's a lot stronger than these guys. He hits hard. He hits very hard. He's got a good chin. Going up to 160, it's not going to hurt him. It's just going to help him retain a little bit more weight. It's only 6 pounds. He'll be stronger at that weight as well. So for me, I don't think Fundora, his team, anyone should be worried about him going up in weight, even though he is a thin man. Putting on an extra 6 pounds, it's nothing. I'm not sure if he cuts weight, but I would say he would probably cut, I don't know how much weight to get to 154. It doesn't look like he's got problems making the weight, even with his height, but still, he's a strong guy, and he's way bigger than all these guys at 154. What I want to see is him fight at 160, and I want to see him fight Carlos Adames, right? Carlos Adames, undefeated. He's got 1 draw on his record in a fight that he 100% won. Okay, he dominated Hamza Shiraz. Somehow that fight was called a draw. Well, we know how, because Hamza is favored by the Turkey, right? He's favored by the Turkey. He's favored by the Saudis, right? Because he's a Muslim. Okay, yeah. So he got a robbery draw against Adames. Adames won that fight easy, or clearly, I should say. But Shiraz, he's 6'3". He was at middleweight before, at 6'3". Adames showed he could get on inside on Shiraz, and hurt him to the body and beat him up. Can he also do that against Fundora? That would be a fun fight. Carlos Adames, undefeated middleweight champion. Fundora, way too big for 154. I think he should go 160, straight for the champion, straight for Adames. I think that would be a great move. especially because, like I say, I don't think Ortiz, Innes, these other guys at 154, who else is there? You know, Madrimov. I don't think these guys are going to take on Fundora. You know, after seeing his last two performances where he's just demolished pretty good fighters in Tim Tszyu and Thurman, I don't think anybody's going to want that smoke against Fundora. So, but I do think Adames will be up for the challenge, and that will be a very interesting fight, good fight for a world title at middleweight. You know, I think that's the fight to make next. Then, you know, there's not a lot of guys at middleweight. If Fundora gets through Adames, I mean, for me, go straight to 154. 168. You know, Adames is probably the best guy at 160. I don't see really anyone else there that could challenge him. If he can get through Adames, go to 168. You know, there's Caleb Plant, there's Berlanga. Those are fights against bigger guys that are about 6 foot. You know, take on a couple of them, and then maybe there's a mega fight there between Fundora and Hamza Shiraz, right? I think that would be a big fight at 168. You know, I know Fundora is at 154 right now, but for me, he could easily tomorrow fight at 168, right? So, yeah, for me, I want to see him go up against Adames next. That would be a big fight, good fight, middleweight world championship. And then, yeah, well, we'll leave it there for now because I think Adames has a decent shot against Fundora. I think he's probably one of the only guys between 154 and 168 who has a shot against Fundora. So that would be a great fight. That's what I want to see next. Let me know what you think.